It's Al-Qaeda material, official Al-Qaeda material. We're dealing with ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Hamas. This is what we're dealing with. It speaks about various chemicals that come out and produce chemical weapons. Simple as that.
While many are questioning the validity of the document, and Sky News noted they couldn't verify what was presented, the rhetoric coming from Israel right now is sounding very similar to the language used by the U.S. in the aftermath of 9/11. The threat of another group or government using chemical weapons has often been lobbied by the United States, especially when the George W. Bush administration accused Saddam Hussein of doing just that in Iraq more than 20 years ago. But this isn't the first time Israel has invoked language used by the U.S. In fact, they were quick to label the initial attack by Hamas as Israel's 9/11, drawing a comparison between the 7th of October and the notorious attacks in the U.S. that led to the so-called War on Terror.
Hamas waged war in Israel yesterday with an unprovoked attack on civilians. They fired thousands of rockets at Israeli-populated centers, and then they breached the border fence and sent in hundreds of armed terrorists infiltrated almost all the border towns. This is unimaginable. This is, someone said, our 9/11. This is war, and we have to consider it as a war.
And it doesn't stop there. A few months after the 9/11 attacks in the U.S., then President Bush gave a speech in which he warned about the danger of what he called the axis of evil. He listed North Korea, Iran, and Iraq, three countries Washington accused of harboring, financing, and aiding terrorists. That label was revived once again last week by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as he warned about a new axis comprised of Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas.
This is part of an axis of evil of Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas. Their goal, open goal, is to eradicate the state of Israel. The open goal of Hamas is to kill as many Jews as they could, and the only difference is they would have killed every last one of us, murdered every last one of us, if they could.
Given that Israel is invoking the language used by the U.S. in the aftermath of 9/11, it seems to be fitting that when President Biden visited Tel Aviv last week, he warned Israel to avoid repeating the mistakes the U.S. made in its response to 9/11.
Justice must be done. But I caution this: while you feel that rage, don't be consumed by it. After 9/11, we were enraged in the United States. While we sought justice and got justice, we also made mistakes.
While Biden didn't elaborate on what exactly those mistakes were, we are left to question whether they included the ground invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan that resulted in 2 decades of death, destruction, and war that has impacted millions of civilians. The claim of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq was used as a rallying cry by the Bush administration when it launched a full-scale invasion without approval from the UN Security Council. Israel's claim that Hamas is planning to use chemical weapons is already creating concerns that it will be used to drum up support for their expected ground invasion of Gaza, reminiscent of what the U.S. did 2 decades ago.